Welcome to Wealth, Words, and Wisdom, where real-life conversations lead to financial clarity. I'm Ashley Carter, alongside my co-host, Carrie Boatner. In this conversation-driven podcast, we talk about real-life topics like parenting, marriage, business, faith, and leadership, all things that naturally lead into deeper discussions about financial understanding, long-term planning, and wise stewardship. Get ready for some honest discussions about money, responsibility, and the choices that shape our future. Let's get into today's conversation. Carrie, I am so excited to dive into today's conversation. But first, I would like for us to take just a moment and address a couple of listener questions that we received. So the first question is, how do I access the money in my personal bank? Do I receive a debit card, or how do I get this money?
And that question is actually going back to our second episode where we talked about infinite banking.
So there are a couple of ways you can get your money. You can fill out a form and have a check mailed to you, or you can fill out a form and have a direct deposit sent right to your bank.
I personally like the second option, Ashley, because when people want their money, they want it now. That's the beautiful thing about this infinite banking scenario that people are allowed to have. Their money is available to them, even once they have executed the contract with our company. Once that money is deposited into their own personal bank, they're able to have access to it within 48 hours. So when we're looking at something like that's even a really big purchase, like a swimming pool, or, we use the example as a camper and people wanting to buy that. The nice thing is they're not having to wait around. The lead time to even just get approved through a bank for a regular loan is going to take much longer. So here they have access to that money in a very short period of time.
So, Carrie, the second question is, how does money in my personal bank get credited? Is this money credited daily, weekly, monthly, yearly? So the answer to that question is the money is credited annually. So most carriers will have a guaranteed interest rate, and then on top of that, you're going to earn an annual dividend. So that's why the growth in these accounts fluctuates between an average of 4 to 6%, because it's based on the company's profitability and it is credited annually. So while you won't see your cash value tick up every month like a savings account, you can borrow against it at any time.
And remember, the other beautiful thing is it's accumulating. And at the end of that year, when they have access and they see that growth, they're not going to get a 1099 to pay taxes on that.
That's right. And it's compounding with uninterrupted interest, which is so powerful.
That's the eighth wonder of the world.
That's right, Carrie. That's what Albert Einstein says about compound interest. And another interesting quote from Benjamin Franklin says, money makes money, and the money that makes money makes money.
Oh, I love that. That's great. That's a good one.
So I don't know about everybody else listening, Carrie, but I'm all about my money making money and that money making more money and more money and more money.
Yeah, and it does it while we sleep too. So I love that.
So Carrie, let's dive into today's episode. Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So this verse isn't just about behavior or faith. It's about life skills. And reality is, Carrie, that money is one of the biggest life skills that we pass down, whether we mean to or not.
Yeah. And it's interesting, Ashley, we all have different ways of parenting. I just want to share an example of one of the ways that I introduced my children to the power of money and accumulating wealth. And I actually learned it from a friend, so I didn't come up with it myself. But when my boys were very, very young, there were things that I was teaching them just about being good humans. Above all, I want my children to love and serve the Lord. And then the other thing is I want them to be incredibly respectful humans. I was raised by a military father, so that mattered to me, the respect issue. And my children, I taught them very young to say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes or no, sir. That's just where I'm from. And being in the South, we do that a lot. But I set up nickel jars for my children. I had mason jars. I wrote their names real big on it. And I also set up a mason jar for myself. Every week, they would get $2 worth of nickels put into their jar. And $2 worth of nickels is a lot of nickels, right? So it looked like a lot to the boys. And so what would happen was when they would forget to say yes, ma'am, and they would just say yes, or they would just say no. And I would say, oh my goodness, we need to go to your nickel jar and let's take some money out of your nickel jar. And they would have to put a nickel into my jar. If they were unkind to one another, they would have to give the other one a nickel. So my boys are twins, so they were learning this money thing at the same time. And then what we would do is we would go to the dollar store and they would be able to use some of their coins to be able to buy something. Back then it was just $1. Now it's $1.25. But they would be able to pick something for $1. And so they understood the value even at the very, very tender age of 4 years old. They were learning about the power of their money. The other thing that I taught them with those nickel jars was they had the ability to earn money back at a very young age. And they would earn their money back by extra chores. If I asked them to do something and they did it, I would pay them a little bit of money. But if they did a random act of kindness or they used inside discipline, they did something all on their own without being asked, then I would give them money, but I would make a big deal out of it. I'd say, oh my gosh, look, let's go to your nickel jar. I just saw you share something with your brother that you would not normally want to share, but I saw that and God saw it too. So we would take money out of my jar and put it into their jar. So at a very, very early age, I was teaching them the value of money. And at the same time, that actually taught them delayed gratification, Ashley, which I think is a very big quality for kids and for adults too. But it's never too soon to teach delayed gratification and the value of money.
I love that so much, Carrie. And
Mhm.
I am so grateful that I get to learn from you. I think you're such an incredible mom and that your boys are so lucky to have you. And I'm grateful that we get to learn from each other and learn together as we go through life.
Yeah. Well, I learn from other people too. So, the Bible teaches us that women, we are to gain wisdom from women who are more mature than us. And so I learned that from a very dear friend named Deborah. I learn a lot too from my sister-in-laws. The women that my brothers have married are remarkable women. And I continue because I'm smart. I learn from other people. Another thing, I was talking about delayed gratification, and just a real quick one with that. When my boys were little, I would take them to Chuck E. Cheese. And back in that time, they earned tickets. Now, I don't know if they do it differently now. I think they have cards or something, but they would earn tickets. So if they played a game, they could earn 5 tickets, 10 tickets, whatever it was. They would earn all these tickets. And for the first couple of times we went up to the counter for them to cash in their tickets, they would earn like a plastic spider or something for 25 tickets. And I mean, there's only so much you can do with however many plastic spiders and just little things like a whistle and things like that. But I started getting my boys focused on the bigger items that were up on the higher shelves in Chuck E. Cheese. And when they started earning those tickets, we'd go up and I'd say, oh my gosh, look, I know you already have 2 spiders, but wouldn't it be great to have that Nerf football up there? Look at that. That's only 3,000 tickets. Wouldn't you rather save these tickets now and we'll keep accumulating them at home? And when we get 3,000 tickets, then you can come back and you can get that football. And they'd go, yeah, I want to wait. I want to wait for that. And that's such a very valuable lesson because in today's times, Ashley, we want it now society where we have fast food drive-ins. We have DoorDash that brings the food directly to your house because you don't have the time or the desire to even get in your car and drive somewhere. I mean, we have become a society that's can almost have a petulant type of spirit, that spirit of impatience. And so I love that delayed gratification spirit. And my kids still have that delayed gratification spirit now today. And they're 16 years old and they're delaying gratification for a lot of things. And so it's a thing that a lot of adults could learn to do too.
Aren't you so right about that? I love that so much, Carrie. And it's fun to see your kids learning about real life concepts. They don't realize that they're learning about things that are going to help them later in life. But as parents, we can see that this is a lifelong lesson they need to learn.
Mhm.
and just teaching them those little lessons that are going to impact them their whole lives is so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. I'll tell you too, your young son is quite an impressive young man, Ashley. Like even when we spoke yesterday about recording today and what time would work, he told me that he was going to be out working alongside his dad. He is a very diligent young man. And even your daughter, she helps in the kitchen and she cooks and she helps clean, she helps with the baby. You are teaching your children, and I love that word train. That word train in that scripture, train up a child in the ways they should go. Nowhere in the Bible does it tell us just let your kids sit around and watch you do things. I mean, of course they're watching, but to actively train them to do something, it requires effort. And I know you are the same way. I mean, you even homeschool your children. You are teaching your children all the time. And I am too. And so I know both you and I do take that scripture quite seriously, train them up in the ways they should go. So I'm constantly teaching. I mean, we do have fun. We do have a lot of fun. I know you do too with your kids, but training them up in every kind of life skill that we possibly can is so important.
Yes, I agree. Speaking of my son, he's 12, and you talking about him going out and working made me think of this story. He loves listening to our podcast, and I love that. I think it's so sweet, but not just the fact that he's listening in support of us, but he's really listening to learn. And a lot of these concepts right now at this point in his life are above his head. He's just now starting to earn money and learn about how to manage that money. But the last podcast he listened to was last week's episode, and it was about FIAs, 401ks. And I asked him after he got done listening what he thought about it. And he's like, "Oh, it was good, but I'm not really sure I understand it." So instead of just being like, "Well, keep listening and you'll learn," I said, "Okay, let's stop and go back to the basics and let's talk about what all this means." Because I told him, "You are starting to earn money now and you need to understand all of this because you may just be making a little bit of money now, but in no time, you're going to be making more money and you're going to have more responsibilities and you need to understand these financial concepts."
Uh-huh.
So we stopped and we started from the basics of you earn money and you're taxed. What do taxes mean? Who's getting this tax money? What is it for?
Uh-huh.
And we talked about in your working years, you're earning this money, but then eventually you're going to get old enough that you can retire. What does that mean? How are you going to live after you retire? You're still going to have bills. We talked about what bills you may still have and where that money's going to come from. We talked about 401ks and how his dad and I, neither one can have a 401k because we're self employed and all of these things. And we talked about those 401k rollovers. So I made sure as we went along that he understood all the different steps. But it really made me think as parents, we always want our kids to live a better life than we did.
Uh-huh.
And so for our listeners, I would like to encourage them to think, what does that mean for you? Does it just mean you want them to have more than you had growing up, do more things, have more opportunities? Maybe you want your kids to be healthier than you were growing up, or maybe you want to teach them about finances. I think a lot of times parents think that they aren't qualified to teach their kids things. I feel like I'm a veteran homeschool mom at this point. This
Uh-huh.
is like our 8th year of homeschooling. And I'll talk to another mom who's thinking about homeschooling and she feels like she's not qualified or not good enough. And I'm like, listen, you taught your kids how to walk, how to talk, how to tie their shoes. You teach them about Jesus. Why do you think that you can't teach them the things they need to learn in school?
Uh-huh.
And in my mind, too, I'm like, why can't we also teach them about finances?
Yeah. And that's a really good point, Ashley, because talking to my man today, and I was explaining to him an opportunity that he had to teach his daughter something. And he goes, "Well, not everything is about teaching." I go, "No, but it actually really is. I think it's just the mindset that you have. I'm not promised tomorrow, Ashley. Only the Lord knows the number of my days. And I need to know that when I leave this earth, that I have poured myself out to my children to teach them the things they need to know. And they need to do and also the things to not do. And one area where I have not made the wisest choices were with my finances. So yeah, it is a really big deal. I mean, at 16, with my boys having their first job, they work at Topgolf. They've opened up their own checking account. They have a savings account. And we're going to get them a secured credit card with their own money so they can begin to establish credit. And then ultimately, our goal is to set them up with their own infinite banking policy where they are able to deposit their own money into that bank. They also tithe to the church, but they're also going to be putting that money into that policy so that it can grow for them, so that at a certain time in their life, they have accumulated all of this money that is safe, that's secure, that's tax-free growth, uninterrupted compound interest, all the things. So to me, yeah, everything is a teachable moment. And even in relationships, money is one of the biggest causes of divorce and strife in a marriage and in a relationship. So for me, teaching my children about responsibilities with finances is as important as me teaching them to pick up after themselves, to have good personal hygiene, how to do good laundry. Like all of the things that we are striving to teach our children for life skills, I'm trying to almost prevent some marital strife because these are things that cause problems in a marriage, and I don't
Mm,
want them to have those issues to come up in their life.
I love that. And it doesn't really matter how much we leave them. What matters is what they do with what we leave them.
Mhm,
Right. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what kind of legacy do I want to leave for my children? Because it's
mhm.
so much more than just money. And that legacy is that lasting impact that you're having in their life.
Right. And the legacy, Ashley, we talk about Jesus here just real quick. When I was out of town, because I travel for work sometimes, and when I was out of town, my children were being taken care of by my man. And there was an opportunity for a men's meeting at church. And so he asked them, "Hey guys, do you want to go to the men's meeting?" And they both said no, which they're like, we're boys, we're not men, right? Of course, they want to be considered men, but at any rate, at that moment, they were claiming that they were boys. So, Paul told me, the boys don't want to go. And I said, well, that's just not how that's going to work out. They're going to go. And he said, yeah, but I don't want to push them. But again, my mentality is I was told by my creator to train up my children in the ways that they are supposed to go. So I dedicated my children to the Lord when they were infants. And I told the Lord I would raise them up. So I sent them a group text. I said, guys, I understand that the men's meeting is happening this week. You are going to go with Paul. I said, the Lord commanded me to train you up in the ways that you should go. And when you're old, you won't depart from it. So this is me training you up in the ways that you should go. It's not punishment. This is only because I love you. And so they both responded back, okay, mom. Like there wasn't really a discussion about it because they understand I'm answering to the Lord. And even when it comes to the Bible, we are called to have financial stewardship, just like we're called to train up our children to love the Lord, to be discerning, to be kind and respectful, to be forgiving, to let the Holy Spirit guide them. We're responsible for all of those things. So they went to the men's meeting, going back around. They went to the men's meeting and it was a great event. And even now I told them the men's meeting is happening. I told them what date, told them make sure you ask off from work. They both said, okay, mom, because they know I'm training them up. And some of the things that we want to teach our kids, even about finances, my kids aren't excited about putting money away for savings, but they don't know they have 16-year-old brains. I have a 60-year-old brain. So I'm going to teach them the things that I know are right for them by learning from my own mistakes and from some of the victories I've had too.
Carrie, I often say that we are not raising children, we're raising adults, right? Because they're not
Yes.
always going to be kids.
Right.
And part of what I say in our homeschool is I'm trying to teach my kids how to live life well.
Mhm.
And that encompasses all different areas of life. One of our biggest things in homeschool is making sure you can read well, because I say that even as a mom, I tell them I'm constantly having to read and learn. So if you can read well all throughout your life, you're going to be able to learn anything that you need to learn. And we want to have confidence in knowing that our children are going to be ready to be good adults and that they are going to be productive members of society.
And Ashley, being a productive member of society includes so many things. One day, being a good spouse, being good parents, but also being fiscally responsible is going to be a really big thing. I know I speak for the both of us that, in our family, like we don't want to be a burden to society. And we also want to teach our children to be independent. I tell my boys, one of them wants to go to law school, the other one is thinking of trade school. Regardless of which path they take, ultimately I would like for them to be business owners. And even that business ownership, Ashley, starts with them learning how to manage their money, taking ownership of their own behavior. We talk about money here because money is a big deal. Without it, we struggle and we suffer and we become dependent upon the system to keep us alive. It takes away our choices, takes away our freedom.
You know that saying that says money's not everything, but it's right up there with oxygen?
Yes.
You have, reality is you have to have money to live, or
That's
at
right.
least live the life you want, for sure.
Yeah. And oftentimes the people who say money isn't everything are people who have a lot of money, right? One of the things I love, Ashley, as we're talking about this is our ability to help people from every walk of life. People who are just starting out, either young or old, but just starting out, trying to do some things financially. We're not the only people who weren't taught about money when we were younger. So people who are just starting out and maybe only have $500 or $1,000, but then we're also helping people who have $50,000, $150,000, $500,000 to put away. I love it that we're able to do that. Our services, and making these recommendations and helping people get into the right financial relationships. We're not charging fees to people. Our illustrations and looking at people's current retirement situations, we're not charging people for that. We're able to help them make good decisions to protect all of their money, not just some of it. And really, the truth is, everything starts at home. It really does. So I'm excited that we're doing this for ourselves, and I'm really excited we're doing it for our children. And we can help other families do the same thing with their kids, starting at a very, very young age with a nickel jar. It all has to start somewhere.
Yes, it sure does. And the verse we started with that says, train up your child, we don't get a second chance to train up our children. And time sure goes really fast. And we're not going to get a second chance to try to build the legacy that we want to build. So I have a bold question for our listeners, and that is, do you just want to float through life, or do you want to change lives while you're here? And I think you and I can both agree that changing lives starts with changing the lives of your children.
Yeah, I agree, Ashley. I do. I think that's beautiful. And so with that, we are concluding another amazing episode of our wealth, words, and wisdom. And Ashley and I have a tremendous lineup of future episodes to share with you, the things that we're learning through parenting, through relationships, through our relationships with other humans, and our relationship with money. So we invite you to please send us your questions. We have more questions from our listeners that we're looking forward to answering in the future. And if you would like to be included in our newsletter, which is packed with great information, we're going to be sending out only a once a month newsletter, but giving you some wisdom and knowledge, because just like we start saving small, you've got to start somewhere. So increasing your financial literacy is really so important to so many different components of your life. So please go ahead and email us at wealthwordsandwisdompodcast@gmail.com. We will add you to our newsletter. And we're here for you along this ride of life to help you in any way that we can by sharing what we've learned, good and bad. So be sure to tune in every single Tuesday morning. Our podcast is available at 6 a.m. Central Time on all of the major podcast channels. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to sharing more in the future. Thank you for listening to Wealth, Words, and Wisdom. Our goal is simple. It's to help you approach your financial decisions with clarity, confidence, and with intention. Because we know that when wisdom leads the way, your money decisions will feel less overwhelming and they will be far more aligned with your real life. If something you heard today resonated with you and you'd like to explore your options, we offer complimentary strategy sessions. There's no pressure, there's no obligation. It's just education and clarity. You can reach out to us at wealthwordsandwisdompodcast@gmail.com. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if this episode was helpful, share it with friends or family who you believe could benefit from this conversation. Until next time, remember, wealth grows where wisdom leads.